The tragic story of how drugs destroyed a person's life is one that has been told many times. Unfortunately, it's a story that never seems to lose its relevance. It's a story that needs to be told because it highlights the devastating effects that drug addiction can have on a person's life. John was born into a loving family in a small town in the United States. He had a happy childhood, and his parents provided him with everything he needed. John was an intelligent and talented young man, and he had big dreams for his future. He was particularly interested in sports, and he excelled in soccer, basketball, and football. John's talent soon caught the attention of scouts, and he began to receive offers to play for professional teams. However, as John began to gain more attention from scouts, he also began to feel the pressure of performing. He became anxious and began to doubt his abilities. John began to look for ways to cope with his anxiety, and he turned to drugs. At first, John only used drugs occasionally. He thought that they helped him relax and forget about his worries. However, as time passed, John became more and more dependent on drugs. He began to use them regularly, and he soon found that he couldn't function without them. As John's addiction took hold, he began to neglect his responsibilities. He stopped going to practice and started missing games. He lost interest in his sport and stopped caring about his future. John's grades began to slip, and he struggled to keep up with his academic work. John's behavior also began to change. He became moody, irritable, and unpredictable. He began to withdraw from his friends and family, and he spent most of his time alone. John's addiction was taking over his life, and he was powerless to stop it. Despite the signs of addiction, John's parents didn't realize the extent of his problem. They thought he was just going through a phase and didn't want to believe that their son was addicted to drugs. They tried talking to him, but he refused to listen. John's addiction had consumed him, and he couldn't see a way out. One day, John's addiction led him to make a decision that would change his life forever. He got behind the wheel of a car while under the influence of drugs, and he caused a serious accident. Several people were injured, and one person died. John was arrested and charged with driving under the influence, vehicular manslaughter, and drug possession. John's life was destroyed. He lost his freedom, his family, and his dreams. He was sentenced to prison, and he spent several years behind bars. John's addiction had cost him everything, and he was left with nothing but regret. It took John a long time to come to terms with what had happened. He realized that drugs had destroyed his life and the lives of others. He knew that he had made a terrible mistake, and he vowed to make amends. John went through rehab, and it was a long and difficult journey. However, with the support of his family and friends, he was able to overcome his addiction. John learned the hard way that drugs can destroy a person's life, but he also learned that it's never too late to turn things around. Today, John is a changed man. He has been sober for several years, and he has dedicated his life to helping others overcome addiction. He travels the country, sharing his story and encouraging others to seek help. John knows that he can never undo the damage that drugs caused, but he hopes that by sharing his story, he can help prevent others from making the same mistakes. John's story is a tragic reminder of how drugs can destroy a person's life. In conclusion, addiction is a disease, and it can happen to anyone. It doesn't discriminate based on age, gender, or background. It can happen to anyone, at any time. Drug addiction is a complex issue, and it requires a multifaceted approach to address it. Education, prevention, and treatment are all important components in the fight against drug addiction. It's important to educate people about the dangers of drugs and to provide them with the tools they need to make informed decisions. Prevention is also critical in the fight against drug addiction. By promoting healthy behaviors and lifestyles, we can help prevent drug addiction from taking hold. Providing support and resources to at-risk individuals can also help prevent addiction from developing. Finally, treatment is essential for those who are struggling with addiction. With the right support and resources, people can overcome addiction and rebuild their lives. However, it's important to remember that recovery is a journey, and it's not always a smooth one. It requires commitment, dedication, and hard work. John's story is a tragic one, but it's also a story of hope. It's a reminder that no matter how far down the path of addiction someone may be, there is always hope for recovery. John's journey is a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of support. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, don't wait to seek help. There are resources available, and recovery is possible. Remember, it's never too late to turn things around, and the first step is always the hardest.